a good time. Put a smile on your face, yeah. Can't be Cam and Elation Radio. Even brighten your day and help you through the night. Bring you good music. Can't be Cam and Elation Radio. And here's your host, Kimmy Kim.
Shout out D on the track, Paint Music Media. Shout out DJ Lee Productions, and I'm Al Cam. But if you a game changer, got my head in. My grind on high, win, lose, or drought. I'ma ride till I die. I go hard in that lane. My God is the aim. Put me in, coach, and watch me change the game. Cause I'm a game changer. 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 I'm full court press. I pledge allegiance to the best. Ain't nothing left to give it that reverence that the Father gets. So every day I work the sweat, can get a flesh, another rest. They say go hard or go home. I say just do whatever's best. It's evident I'm blessed and I work like it. Fight like a Viking. Fight like a lichen. The difference is I like it, so I shine like I'm lightning. So I'm going head to head with certain depth. Who you liking? Yeah. So it's time for coach to put me in. I'm strapping on my shoulder pads, lacing up my cleats, and then I'm gone with the wind. Like I'm gone in 60 seconds. You can't hold me, you can't check me. Check the memo, check the message running through. Like I'm baddest. I'm trucking whoever's standing in my way. Ain't no way you gon' stop me. You better off to let me in. Cause I go hard, even though they say no way that I could win. Like I'm Brett Ford, I'ma ride this game. My head to the sky, my grind on high. Win, lose, or drought. I'ma ride till I die. I go hard in that lane. My God is the aim. Put me in, coach, and watch me change the game. Cause I'm a game changer. 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 Yeah, I told you once before, my God came to change the game. Different outlook on to life, a different way to play the lane. Now my rush and yours is skyrocketing. Now I'm so insane. For the kingdom building, now my shot, it cannot be contained. So I'm gon' pray for change for myself and then what I can. I don't need no euros or no pesos or no money grams. Shout out to Wado, cause I know that he gon' play this fam. The FCA Sports Camp, Game Changer Summer Jam. I don't need 100 grand to tell them that they need the lamb. It's heaven, it's just who I am. Al Cam, this where I stand. Man, I'm gon' play the fist. It's so deep to turn it quick. It's like I'm out from the trap to turn around, get back in it. Never that's not insane. It's evident your butt they chain. Like I'm Jack Johnson. The same year he changed his name. So I sacrifice my life for the cause just to win. And if you a game changer, let me see you represent. My grind on high. Win, lose, or drought. I'ma ride till I die. I go hard in that lane. My God is the aim. Put me in, coach, and watch me change the game. Cause I'm a game changer. 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 Now put me in, coach. 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 I'ma go hard.
I'ma go hard. I'ma go hard. I'ma go hard.
Cause I'm a game changer. 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 I'm a game changer.
Really relentless tonight because we're in a blizzard up here in Kentucky, or depending on where you at, down here in Kentucky. But in Kentucky, it's the middle of a blizzard right now, but I'm enjoying myself. But, man, I got a lot on my mind tonight. Got a lot on my mind. Yeah, welcome back. I got a lot on my mind, but I've been thinking about some things. And I don't know if y'all heard, but President Biden is supposed to now nominate a female, a woman, for Supreme Court justice, and not just any woman, a woman of color, a black woman, an African American woman, right? That's what he said, right? And that's what he's been putting out. But something hit me all of a sudden as I've been trying not to pay attention to the news. Anybody who knows me, I'm a news junkie. I like keeping up with information, relevant information. I don't do social media much and all that stuff, but I do real world news. You know, I do BBC, I do MSNBC, CNN, I do PBS. You know, some of the news. I believe we need it. We need to know what's going on, at least have an idea of what's going on around us. So, heard about the pick, and I was, I'm just a guy who thinks, and I'm naive in a way, because I'm just a guy who thinks that, when we choose Supreme Court justices or any judge, we should just choose the best person for the job. But over the last few years, y'all know that's not really what's been happening. And so it got me to thinking, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I'm black, African American, Negro, whatever you want to use, right. But don't get disrespectful. Just call me by Sedric if you don't know what else to call me, right? But my friends, a couple of the friends I talked to were Hispanic, white. I even had a guy who's he is from India, but he's been in America most of his life. So, but anyway, and it was just some things. I started to notice some very subtle hints in their conversation, and a few of the people, I won't call them out, but they had some real subtle words that they used. Basically what they were trying to say was, is she qualified? And not just is she qualified, I felt that my interpretation was, is she qualified, or are we going to judge her a little more difficult or a little less difficult because she's a black female, right? And so it got me to thinking, and it really got me to thinking, and I didn't get into any real deep, heated conversations with these people. I wanted to hear what they had to say, and they were respectful towards me, so I was respectful towards them. But my question, when I came out of these conversations, my question was simply this: is America inherently racist? Right? And that's crazy to me, but that's what my thought was, because I know what my opinion is, and I'll let everybody know by the end of the show exactly what my opinion is. But I just could not get that thought out of my head, and I've been thinking about it all week. And so before we get too deep in the convo, I want to let everybody know I'm still praying. I'm praying every day, and God is blessing. He is blessing. I mean, He got a lot of blessings stored up for us, y'all. So y'all get ready. We're about to be blessed. So anyway, with that being said, I want to go ahead and bring on Jason. Jason, you on with us tonight?
Oh, yes, sir, I am. How we doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm kind of in one of those moods, and I want to hear something. But how was your week?
Man, it's been a good week. It's been kind of cold here in Texas, but I'm not going to compare it to the Kentucky cold, so I'll just leave it there. It's not a Kentucky cold, but it's still Texas cold.
Texas cold. Well, all right. I'm in the middle of a blizzard, which is awesome, but that's a good thing. So I just had that question, man, and I don't know what you think. I mean, I want to get your thoughts on it. But my question was, is our system, is everything here in America inherently just biased and racist? I don't even say biased. Because I started looking up the words racism and discrimination and all this stuff, and for me, as I fell back on, racism, is basically to be prejudiced or discriminate against the person because of basically the color of their skin or their nationality or anything like that. You don't know nothing about them. You just see their skin color and automatically they this or that. You got all these judgments on them. And so my question and my thought was, is America inherently like that? So, what do you think?
I like that question. I like that question, and I've heard it posed in a different way, and the way I've always heard it posed is racism etched into the fabric of America? Is it just inherent to what American is, right? As I was preparing for the show, I did this similar thing to you to kind of look up what is the definition of racism, right? What does it mean when we say someone is racist? And I won't get into the actual Webster definition because I think we've heard it a lot of times. But ultimately, when we talk about racism, we're talking about a thought, right? It's what I think about a particular person, a particular individual, a particular group of people, right? And whatever that group is and how I'm ever categorizing that group, color of their skin, the music they listen to, where their background is. It's a thought about an individual person. And, as I was reading through it, it says, it talks about racism, and sometimes we do apply these thoughts to groups of people, right? I think black people are violent, right? So I have that thought, Now, when I was reading, and I want to get your thought about this, it talks about unconscious bias, where, yes, this person has this thought, but they're not aware of the thought that they have. I would tell you from my perspective, I think that's a load of BS, right? You may not recognize where the thought came from. I would give you that. A lot of us have thoughts in our heads that we can't tell you where it came from, but to say you don't know you have that thought, you don't know you're looking at this person and you're looking at the same biological or a similar biological entity, but your thoughts about them are totally different, right? I'm walking down the street, I see two people, right? I don't know any of them. I know nothing about them. From a biological perspective, they're almost exactly the same. But I have a thought about this person different than a thought about this person. You can't tell me that's unconscious, right? You can't tell me that that's not something that you can't recognize and see, right? Now, like I said, I will give you that you may not know why I think this of this person, right? But you can't tell me the thoughts are different.
Yeah.
So when you hear the term unconscious bias, what are your thoughts about that one?
Oh man, that's a deep. See, how do I say it? I'm not gonna be all holy, deep, and spiritual on this. I'm gonna come at this one the only way I know how. See, when I hear unconscious bias, I hear that. This is what I hear. I was raised like this. I've heard this a lot of times. I don't know. It's just that's just how they are. Well, who is they? Well, your kind, my kind. And seeing that person trying to talk to me like that doesn't see anything wrong with what they're saying. And they don't see anything wrong with it because, check this out, they've been desensitized. In other words, they were raised that way. And they you know how it is. If you hang around somebody who smells a lot and you don't really mind the smell, eventually you kind of forget that they smell. But when they're not around, you'll notice it smells a little better. You can smell the bounce in your shirt as opposed to the must in the other shirt. You know what I'm saying? They've been with it for so long that they just kind of have adapted to it. Does that make sense?
So yeah, it does. It does. So instead of smell, I'm gonna use the word stench. So when we talk about the question that we asked, is racism etched into the fabrics of America? When we look at that thing of unconscious bias, I think you hit on it. I've been so in this stench for so long, I don't smell that it stinks. I don't smell the stench because my nose has acclimated to it, right? So when we talk about the concept of unconscious bias, what we're basically saying is I've existed in this stench for so long, I don't even see that how bad it smells, right? And then the question becomes, to your point, how have I been allowed to live in this stench for so long? How have I been allowed to live in this funk for so long that my nose and I've got desensitized and acclimated to it?
Well, see, okay. Think about this. When you think about in the Bible, you think about, I guess in Acts, when Paul and John when they were speaking to the masses, and they were at one point they were talking directly to the clergy, and they were saying how wrong they were, and then they were also talking to the people. When they were talking to the groups of people after the resurrection of Christ, they were talking to the people, and they said that, check this out, they said, y'all are the ones who handed him over to be crucified, even when Pilate did not want to punish him. Y'all wanted to. Y'all chose to free a thief or murderer than free Christ. Look, these people were so caught up into what they were being told. They were so caught up into quote-unquote religion that they couldn't see that God was amongst them. God was living amongst them because they were caught up. And that's how we do it today. They were indoctrinated. That's the word I'm looking for. Indoctrinated. And when you're indoctrinated into something, I don't know, I joined the military, right? I joined the Army at a young age. And I'm telling you this, there were some things that I was taught in basic training. Like one of the things we were taught in basic training, and this is no joke, every morning we woke up, we said kill. Every afternoon we went to lunch, we said kill. Every night when we went to bed, it was kill, kill, kill. All day long, kill, kill, kill. So much to the point, Jason, that if you upset me, that was the only thing going through my head. I couldn't think of nothing else. And I thought that was okay. And the reason I thought it was okay, because I was indoctrinated at a young age. But once that revelation came, and I realized I can't think like that and live amongst even soldiers. I can't, because every time somebody makes you mad, you can't do away with them. And I think that in somebody who's living like that in our society, it's because they don't have exposure to the other people. You know, have you ever met a person who's, and this is no joke, have you ever met somebody on this earth that has never met a black person? Have you ever come across that situation?
So I've met people who've not had intimate relations with the black person. And
I'm talking never
so
met.
I you know, see, so for me, I hear what you're saying, but at the end of the day, right, when we talk about racism and we go back to like the concept of racism, it's just a thought of an individual, right? All right, so I could respect if you never met a black person and you have no thoughts about black people, I can respect that. But if you can't tell me I've never met a black person, but then have some thoughts about that black person, because then I'm like, then where do these thoughts come from, right? So I hear what you're saying, right? You know, like I've never met them, I never interacted with them, I never had the experience with them. And if you tell me I've never met a black person, so I have absolutely no thoughts about a black person, that tells me that you are really truly coming from a place of ignorance. I don't know, I've never been around. But, you know, when you tell me I've never been around black people, but yet and still I have thoughts about black people, well, you don't no longer get to claim ignorance in my book.
But I want to even add to that, Jason, because see, you said, I don't even know if you heard yourself. You never met a black person, but then you have thoughts about a person. Listen, or you have no thought about a person. Listen, if you're a human being, and this is the thing I can't stand with people. If you are a human being, then you have compassion for your fellow man. You can't have compassion for only the people who look like you, because compassion is compassion. Compassion in itself as a human emotion, it can't discriminate. It doesn't. Compassion is compassion. So you can say, I don't have compassion for this person or this group of people. That means that you're there. You're already living on that, you're already on the cusp of what the fabric of this country is made of, in my opinion. It's so deeply rooted in everything we do in America. Because I'm going to tell you this. I met a guy from, he was from one of the African nations, and he was dark as dark can get. I mean, really, really dark. And, you know, he told me, and this is no kidding, this is a guy who hadn't even been speaking English 2 years yet. And he said, I always felt some kind of way about black Americans. And what they call us is American African. They don't really call us African Americans. They say we're not even, some of them, some people. But anyway, he said that he felt some kind of way because of, here it is, what he saw in the media, what he heard on the news. That's how he got his opinion of us as a culture, as black culture in America. And I'm just saying it was a very biased opinion of black men mostly. He felt that all black men, our dads weren't at home. We were raised by our welfare queen moms. We were poor. We stole everything. We weren't very intelligent. We sold drugs. And I'm saying, bro, I don't fit none of those stereotypes. If you just look at me, I don't fit that stereotype, right? And then if you get to know me and learn that my parents were together till they passed away, you know what I'm saying? I grew up in a house with two parents. My parents encouraged me to get an education. My parents encouraged me, check this out, to be kind to everybody. You know, they had compassion. And so that's why I say, in my opinion, and that question I asked, because I was stuck on it, racism. It's woven into the fabric of America. Because it hurts.
So you hit on a couple of points. You hit on a couple of points. Yeah. You've hit on a couple of points that makes me lean. Like, I would agree with you. I think it is etched into the fabrics of America, right? Because I want to go to that point about the foreigners. And it's not just the people coming out of Africa. It's any foreigner that comes into this country, they walk in with a thought about the black man, with a thought about the black woman, right? Where do they get these thoughts from, right? How do I never deal with a person and get this thought, right? Like I said, once if you never dealt with somebody, but you have a thought about that person, you no longer get to claim ignorance in my book. But then we have to ask ourselves is, how did that get developed? Well, we all know if you do any basic study, a lot of people learn from the environment that they're in. So if I get put into an environment, and this is what people say, going back to your initial point, well, that's just the way I was raised. That's the way I was brought up. Yeah, if you put in an environment of hate and these thoughts are being put in your head, you're going to continue those thoughts. So, I think to answer the question, how else do you explain, those thoughts that people that don't deal with black people have about black people, So that's a really good point, when you talk about, like, people who coming from another country who's never even seen an American black person already have their thoughts developed, right? So going back to the other part, right, when we talk about, like, is racism etched into the fabric of America, right? Let's go back to that concept of what racism is what I think about somebody, right? How do when you talk about compassion, right? Like the example I gave, I'm walking down the street, I see two human beings. Biologically, these people are exactly the same. The only difference is they may look a little different. But then how does my thought about one over the other gets affected? How does my compassion, because now my compassion is based on my thought being altered because of that, right? We all know what's wrong is wrong, right? And no one can tell me what, like, the difference between right and wrong. But then how do we justify when wrong is being done to a group of people that in my head, how do I justify it if not because of the thought that I have about this group, right? So, the more you think about it, the more you really just kind of start dissecting it, the more you start looking at it from a deeper perspective, where do these thoughts come from, right? If racism is truly about what I think about somebody, where are these thoughts coming from? And, I always tell people, when you look at the concept of race, it's a social construct, and it was created. Now, when you start going deeper into it, it was created to prove the superiority of the white race, of the white man, right? So even the concept of race,
Yeah.
even the concept of race has in it the thought of one group being greater and better than the next group, right? So you take this concept
Yeah.
called race and you look at it. How does it play in America? Look at the building documents, the building blocks, the amendments, the constitutions. They say all men, but then they come back and say, well, black men. I'm like, why there has to be a distinction, right? You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty evident that question that we ask what the answer is too. You know, about is it etched into the fabric? But then I want to think about it from another perspective, right? You know, let's think about it from the perspective of immigrants, right? Immigrants, right? You know,
All right.
a lot of people have not dealt with Mexicans or Hispanic people who lived in Mexico and had to brave into this country, maybe illegally, to get away from the injustice in their country, right? But they have a thought about it, right? Now, what's so amusing to me is that you know who here in America isn't an immigrant, right?
Not me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yet and still we have these thoughts about this group of people, and I think that speaks to another thing, and we'll come back to it, how we deny the things in ourselves and justify the things in other people, right? So what are your thoughts about that? You know, when we talk about racism, especially in dealing with immigration, immigrants and refugees.
But interesting question, because I don't even know if I told you last week I had a discussion with a business acquaintance, a company that I work for, and I'm talking to this guy. He's like 80 years old, and he said, for some reason, he wanted to talk politics. He's a nice guy. He's an older guy, and you know he's set in his ways. You know, 80 years of him in America. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you where he at. So he had an interesting thought. He said, hey, well, he was trying to tell me all the great things that Donald Trump has done. And I was only talking about the moral character of the man. But anyway, we didn't agree on anything because Donald Trump didn't do anything great. So, but anyway, that was my opinion about his service to our country. And he brought up, well, what about New York? New York just passed a law that allows dreamers to vote. I said, okay. I said, but it's not a national election. We're talking New York State. Well, yeah. I said, well, okay, well, let's look at it. And I didn't go into a bunch of details with them because I didn't want to have that conversation because we had already been talking for an hour. But here's the deal. You brought up immigration. Dreamers are people who were brought to America as children. They were minors. They've been here. They're adults now. Most, they're of legal age, most of them. They've not committed any crimes. They've worked. They've paid their taxes. But, they don't get no tax return. They can't. And they've done all these things, and they don't get in trouble. Some of them are even in college. I wanted to ask him, what do you do with children like that? Because they were children when they got here. What do you do? They don't know the country of their origin. They don't know that country they were born in because they've been here in America, and so they don't even know if they have family in the new country, right? And so I one question I didn't get a chance to ask him was, well, I'm sorry, where did your people come from? And he's part Irish. Come on, man. So my thoughts on it are very simple. Jason, my thoughts are this right here. I believe if you're here in America, honestly, I believe that you should come legally, right? But if you are, in the case of DACA, in the case of the Dreamers, they had no choice in the matter. They're here. They're not a burden to society, then why can't they be treated like citizens? Why can't they be given an opportunity to become citizens? And whether they're citizens, legal citizens or not, they're still human beings. They still have feelings. They still need to eat. They still need to enjoy it. Like, on some level, we shouldn't treat people like they're third-class citizens. We shouldn't treat people like they're slaves. That's my take on it. They're human beings. And all of us so-called Christians, I love it when they say, I'm an evangelical Christian. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and tell you, get the religion out of my face because I don't want to hear it. I love talking to those people so I can, tell them what I need to tell them and move on about, hopefully educate them. But definitely that's how I feel about it.
Now you make a good point, right? When you talk about, when you talk about from the Christian perspective, because going back, we're always going to circle back to what racism is. It's a thought. But when you read the Bible and you read what God says, right? I made you in the image of me. I created you, like intentionally, right? When you read about the creation of not just man in Genesis, but every man therefore, you see that the God of creation took time and effort and carefully designed each and every one of us. The thought that he had of us was we're special, right? So if we are Christians trying to align ourselves with our Christ, right? How do we have a thought about another person that doesn't, like you said, that does not support what the Bible says? So to your point, the people who claim to be, hey, I'm a Christian, are you practicing Christian thoughts and ideas? Because I know the Christ that I serve, right? The Christ that I serve, he see the thought he has of people is everybody's a rare and special gift, right? That he created, that the Father created for a purpose, right? So that's the thought that the Christ that I serve has. So you, Mr. Christian, what Christ do you serve, and what thought do they have to help you say that you're in alignment when you have these thoughts of these people, when you think, these things, and not just like with the immigrants, and and not recognizing what they've gone through, right? I mean, and that's crazy when you think about it, because pivotal to the Christian experience is suffering. Christ suffering on the cross for us, right? Our continuing suffering on this earth until we get to be in heaven in the presence of God. So for us to dismiss that suffering here on earth, we're dismissing a key component of our own faith. So as people become, for a lack of a better word, numb and desensitized to the suffering of others, we get further and further away from what we're called to do and a core tenet of our belief. So that's my big question. My big question. You said, so we get further away from what we're called to do and called to be. Well, what are we called to be? I mean, that's easy.
Okay, you go ahead.
So we're called to be ambassadors of Christ. Though that beautiful thing that God created in the womb of every human being, of every woman, we're called to love that thing, to try to walk with them, to help them come back into the relationship with the God and the Christ that we serve. That's what we're called to do. That's what we're called to.
All right. See, I know that's the reason we're talking about this, because I hear you. I mean, the greatest of these, when we go to the fruits of the Spirit, he said is love, right? And we ought to see if you're a Christian, something about you ought to say you're a Christian. Now, I'm not saying that you got to be 24/7, 365, holier than thou. That's not what I'm saying. But I think if you are a Christian, if you are a true follower of Christ, you got to be 24/7, 365 follower of Christ. You gonna follow? You still be following Christ when you yell child, you're still going to be a follower of Christ. You just acted on a negative emotion, right? Right? You got angry and you sinned. See, we all sin. And I'm tired of that being the excuse for why we stay in it. We...
Yeah.
Yes, you are. And Jesus didn't even accept this world. Remember? Righteous in this sin, this sin called life. And so all I'm saying is that I know that racism exists, but it's because some of us have chosen to stay neutral, stay silent, and well, it don't really affect me, so I ain't gonna make a big fuss. And if I do make a big fuss, then I'm gonna be labeled and I'm gonna be mistreated.
Right. And I think
I don't even know if you asked me that question.
Right, but I think that goes to the point, right? You know, like I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me. I'm just thinking about me, right? And I think, you know, if you look at the life of Christ and as Christians, what we're called to do and what we're called to be, we are called to think about others, right? So even if you subscribe to, well, I was just taught this way, that's the way I was. Well, we serve a God that's greater than our legacy, right? And if we go to Him, He can change those thoughts, right? If we seek to Him, if we go to Him and say, okay, you know, refine me, purify me, you know, align me with You, right? This racism thing goes away because we don't see our thoughts of man just becomes aligned with God. And when we start aligning our thoughts with the thoughts that God has, we don't see color of skin. What we see is that beautiful creation. And sometimes that, like you mentioned, that beautiful creation makes a bad choice, but it doesn't change that beautiful creation and the basic components of it. So it is very disheartening to know that here we are, you know, I don't know how many years after slavery, and we haven't even fixed racism in the church, right? You know, the saddest thing I heard in the morning most true thing, the most segregated day of the week is Sunday, right?
Yeah.
It's Sunday, and that's one, like I said, that's one of the saddest things I see, but it is so true, right? And how do we not fix racism in the church?
You know, it's funny you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Dave. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. It's actually called Segregated Sunday. I tell you, it's one of those B-rated. It's probably B-rated. Like, they probably filmed it with them Kodak cameras. But in the movie, Segregated Sunday, you might be able to find it, but the movie itself is exactly what we're talking about. It's about people. One is a rapper, one is a country music singer, right? But they're gospel artists, and they go to the Gospel Music Awards, and they both get an award. And inadvertently, the rapper is a black guy. You know, looks like the urban streetwalker. I ain't even gonna label it because he wasn't a thug, but he wore the baggy pants, the big jackets. He dressed like that. He had that urban lifestyle thing going. Talk with slang, you know. And then the country music guy, he wore the tight English with the big W's on the pocket, boy boots, the hat, the tight shirt, everything. And middle-aged guy. And they wound up in a room. And they were finding out that they had been brought up racist. They didn't even know it. Right? They didn't know it. Why? Because they never crossed that line, never mixed their cultures together. And so when they did it, they tried to make this album together. And when they realized, this time they realized, both of them realized that they were racing their way. One prejudiced who was born racist, but they realized that they were both wrong is because their friends acted out when they showed up. So when the rapper went to the country music, heard the friends were like, "Oh, I do it up here," and when the rapper invited the country music singer to his station, his friends was like, yo, hey man, what you got going, man? That kind of party, you know? And that's when you really realized. And then they did one thing like in the movie. They said, we got to make a change. And so I want to know, do you think America, can decide that? Who's going to make that change? I'm about to break my legs to that. But, you know me. Do you think it can happen?
I do believe it can happen because I believe we serve a God that's greater than any circumstance and situation. You know, I don't care how long racism has been around in America. Our God has been around longer. So for me, the change always starts in the same place for me. It starts with the church. But until the problem we have is that we don't step up to do the things that we want to do. How can I lead and guide this world out of racism when I'm just as bad in the church as those people outside the church, right? You know?
Yeah.
So for the change, for me, the change starts with us, people who call themselves believers, right? Because we are, if we're being honest, aligned to the same God. And what he thinks and what he says and what he commands, we should be doing, right? And when we make a decision, when we make a decision as a church, and I'm not talking about the black church makes a decision, the white church makes a decision, the Asian church. I'm talking about the global body of Christ makes a decision to say, you know what, we're tired. We need to do something. Then there is nothing that can stop us because we've got God on our side, you know. And so that's the part that Go ahead.
I want to attack that just a little bit. But what about this? And this is something I witnessed with my own two eyes. Trump uncovered something in people, okay? And I'm talking clergy here. I'm talking pastors and deacons, church leadership. He uncovered something. And these people were willing to look the other way when he was disrespectful to anybody. Because he said, here it is, I'm against abortion. And because he said that, they were willing to look the other way on every single thing. Well, first off, when we Christians going to get on one accord? That's the problem I got. How we gonna pray to end something that, honestly, heck, we the one dragging it out. We the one bringing it. You know, and I'm saying we because I am a Christian, but I'm just being honest. That's my feeling about it. We're the ones who keep the stuff going. That whole mess with Trump could have got stopped a long time ago. All it took was the people to stand up and say, hey, ain't that kind of party. Oh man, you stuck in the ditch.
And to your point, I think, you know, and I think this is where, you know, I understand, you know, the people who stood next to Trump, not because of the person, because they saw him as a means to an end, right? You support my agenda. You have some power and authority. So to your point, I'm going to look past, you know, some blatant character, morality flaws in you, right? So the question I ask anybody who wants to stand is that, I'm like, don't you trust God, right? These things that we profess, these things that we want, you know, and we don't want in our culture, don't we trust God to give them, right? So why do we have to sell our souls to these politicians and these other people to try to get what we can just get if we just pray to God and say, okay, God, you know, this is what we want, you know? So you're right. We do have to get on one accord as a body, but it's so difficult because going back to our original question, is racism etched into the fabric of America, right? And as we continue to talk, it just reverberates itself. It is. Because even as a body of Christ, I'm going to have these thoughts of people, of individuals, of groups, right? And sometimes those thoughts are even greater than my understanding of the God that I serve. So, as we continue to talk and we ask the question, I don't think it's hard to answer. Is racism etched into the fabric of America? I would wholeheartedly agree with you that says yes. Because if we just look at some of these basic things, right, and how we operate, and trying to understand, where do these thoughts come from? Well, one thing that we all have in common is that we are all living in America, and that's the crazy part. You can take people who grew up with the proverbial silver spoon in their mouth, the people who grew up, just dirt poor. We all grew up in America. That's the one thing we have in common. After that, there's nothing else. But yet and still, we have a pretty consensus thought. I don't know. I'm saying that, if one,
Hey, my crazy mind knows this. This is something I know because I've been to a number of foreign countries, and I say this: it's being exported and imported to different countries too. You hear what I'm saying? It's all over, but we're supposed to be, like, to your point before, we're supposed to be Christian. Doesn't matter what country, doesn't matter what language. We're supposed to be followers of Christ, and we're supposed to be standing shoulder to shoulder against anything that goes against God. I think we have a difference of opinion on how we stand shoulder to shoulder, how we fight against the things that go against God. And of course, we can't solve it on this hour-long podcast, but I think that's part of our problem is the way we fight. Because, again, I always use the number one topic.
Yeah,
you go ahead.
Before you go a little bit, when you talk about how we fight, I think the last presidency was a telltale sign of how we fight. We fight through men, right? Instead of trusting God, we turn to these men who may have some of our agenda in line, and they've got they got a lot of power and authority. So we want to fight our fight through men. And unfortunately, sometimes when we do that, the men we align ourselves with, are nothing close to being where we need to be aligned. So,
if the reason we do what we do ain't about God, then why do we do it? Because I was going to bring up the point, and again, I bring up the favorite topic is because I know a lot of people who are completely and totally against abortion. I ain't got a problem with them. I don't believe in abortions either. But here's my problem, and here's where people have a problem with me, especially my Christian brothers and sisters. They say, well, if you're a Christian, how could you say that abortion should be legalized? Like, man, and you know what? I say, if I'm wrong on this, I know that when I go meet my maker, I'm going to have to answer for the way I feel about it. And the way I feel about it is this. I believe that abortion is wrong. I do believe that there are some circumstances where we should leave people alone. Now, I'm not going to make this a whole conversation about abortion. I'm saying my way of dealing with people in abortions is this. Okay, there should be some parameters. There should be some rules. But at the end of the day, sometimes it can save a life. Other times it takes a life. Am I going to be the one to have to answer? Because every time I read in my Bible, my interpretation of what God says is, he says, I stand at the door and knock. In other words, Sedric, you introduce him. I do the rest of the work. You ain't got nothing else to do. You introduce him to me, I got this. I don't need you trying to be me. I got this. And that's how I fight when it comes to things like that. And it's not just abortion. Racism as a whole. I'm not going to I'm not going to run up to somebody and hit them over here with a baseball bat because they're a racist. That's just not going to happen. Now, if they attack me and Jesus let me be me, well, I might do something, right? You know what I'm saying? But I want to, and the point I was trying to make about how we fight is the issue, is that we shouldn't be resorting to violence. We shouldn't resort to a bunch of the negative things that we do. We shouldn't form cliques and just, how we as Bible thumpers can be. We can beat people over the head with the Bible to the point where they can't stand to look at the Bible. It's not a book to them. It's a weapon. It's a spear. It's something hurtful and harmful. And I think that we need to learn how to fight with what we said earlier. We need to learn how to fight with love. And once we allow love to be our method, I think we're going to get a lot further. I think we're going to conquer a lot more things. But we have to learn to fight, and we have to all start fighting the same way. Man, come on, man. Paul and Silas. I mean, you know Paul in the prison. You know what happened. Started praying together. Right. Yeah. Right. And so that's my big thing about how we fight. That's how we got to learn how to fight.
And you meant something like, right.
Mm-hmm.
It's with our faith. We don't fight with our fists. We fight with our faith, right? And just kind of going back, but not staying on the point of abortion. To your point, right? What the law of the land is the law of the land, right? But we're not called to. We're called to deal with the person, right? Whether abortion is right or not. My issue is not the law of the land. It's that little girl who's struggling with that choice. It's that So whether it's legal or not, the greatest gift God has given us is free will, right? So if we put laws in place, it doesn't change that, right? People still gonna have their free will.
That's right.
And it doesn't make those laws don't make anybody closer or further away from being a Christian. What does help them is when we walk next to those people. And we show them how to properly use the free will God's given them. So these people who want to fight for these different laws, and we want to pass laws against gay marriage, against abortion. Don't get me wrong, I'm against both of them because they don't align with what my God tells me is right and wrong. But the reality of it is, those laws can't take away the gift that God's given me, which is called free will, right? So if I'm fighting for what God is fighting for, I'm fighting for the person, not the law, So it is a short-sighted approach. It is, But I think you just said it. We don't fight with our fists. We fight with our faith. And sometimes our fist isn't our physical fist. It's our political fist, right? And I think that's where a lot of us are getting lost. We're trying to fight with our political fist instead of fighting with our Christian faith. So no, I like that point, but I do want to kind of pivot us back to the question that we started with, right? The question that we started with is racism etched into the fabric of America, and I want to go back. I want to just look at one more area when we look at this, and the area of discrimination, right? Now, as I said, when we were studying for the show, I looked at racism, and I looked at racism versus discrimination, right? Racism is the thought of that person, right? Discrimination is taking action. Let's think about where we were, 50, 60 years ago? There was a group of rules in place that said these people got treated differently, right? Oh, you know what? Let's even back up further. There was a rule that says, oh, you know what? You're 3/5 of a person, right? You're not even a whole person, right? I'm gonna take action and not even make you a whole person. I'm gonna make you 3/5 of a person. And if I remember correctly, these actions were written into some of the foundational documents that of this country we call America. So, kind of going back to the racism and discrimination being acting on those racist thoughts. And I don't think anybody argues that America has been discriminatory in some of their old practices, right? You know, so when you think about discrimination, what are your thoughts about that? And how do you define it? And then how do you see how that plays out how it plays out here in America?
Discrimination. See, discrimination to me is just it's almost like racism, except your reason for discriminating it may be a little different. You know what I mean? You may discriminate against me, like try to hold me back or not allow me to do certain things just because I'm from one part of town or the other. You know, of course, my differentiation with racism is it don't matter where I'm from. It's just because of the color of my skin, because of my nationality. And so my thoughts on discrimination is the same as my thoughts on racism. You know, these discriminatory practices, man, think about redlining. Most people are like, I ain't never heard of redlining. Oh, that's because you ain't black. Because you're not Latino. That's because you're white. I'm gonna say it like this, easier and shorter. And those practices, though they were against the law, they were allowed to slide through a lot, and then they wrote them into the law. Think about police. I think the reason why, and this is just me and my wild thinking, but I think part of the reason why police and black people is like oil and water a lot of times is because somewhere deep down in our innards, in our gut somewhere, I don't know, I'm just making it up, but somewhere deep down inside, we understand why police were created in the first place. You know, this whole idea of all men are created equal, it was a very noble idea. And for a little while during Reconstruction, it was coming along just fine. See, people don't want to tell you in your history books that we had black judges, we had black people elected into Congress and the Senate. See, they don't want to tell you that in your history book, but it was true until they rolled it back, until they made the deal with the devil, and they pulled all the troops out of the South, and they let the South do what it do. Started 100 years of Jim Crow, and that's truly when racism was written. I mean, it went unabated throughout our Constitution, out the country, different states, different laws. The reason why people talk about states' rights and states' laws, because they know why they're talking about it. Why? Because states back then were allowed to write their own laws, no supervision, no nothing. So that's my take on it. I think we can overcome it. We have to, and we can't lay down on it. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. No. And I think that's a good take. And just kind of in our closing moments, I think, for what you said about the state rights, and if you look at what we're doing today, we're really trying to get back to that. And I think, if nothing else, believe your eyes. When you lose that federal intervention, you see how these states, here we are, we're supposed to be so evolved. They go back to what they did, we hadn't gone. Let's be for real, we hadn't come that far. So, but just like in the last moments, just kind of to close us out, let's go where we started, right? Is racism etched in the fabric of America? And I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is. Yeah, I think it is.
I think it is. Baked in.
I think. Based on what we've discussed, based on what we see, but based on what we saw in the past, based on what we continue to see today, when you think of racism as a thought of one group of people over the other, you can't tell me that there's a group of people in America that has that everybody thinks of it equally. So I'll give you the last word to kind of summarize what your thoughts about that question is.
All right, I'm gonna make it real quick. I'm going to say you're 100% right. And I think that I think this can be reversed. I think it's going to take just as long as it did to enter into this way of thinking. But I think over the next 50 to 100 years, I think we can make a real change. I think real change starts with the individual, and it can start immediately. It just depends on how much we really want it. You know what I mean? I've been around the world, and I'd rather live in America than these other foreign countries that I've been to, that I've visited, that I've lived in. I'd much rather live in America, but I would also much rather live in America where I'm truly a free man and I'm not being discriminated against or treated differently because of the color of my skin or my race. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I feel about it. Like you were talking about the difference between racism and discrimination. I just thought about it. You can discriminate against, let's say, someone who's LGBTQ, right? Because once you find out that's what they are, you can discriminate against them. But if you didn't know that they were that way, you'd be all right with them. I've seen people like that. You're okay with them as long as you feel like they just like you. That's discrimination. But racism, I can't hide it. I can't hide my color. I can't. I mean, you may not know that I'm black or African American because I can speak a little Spanish. And if you hear me speaking Spanish, you say, hey, if you don't know the dialects, you might think I'm from somewhere south of the border, right? But you still discriminate against me because of the color of my skin. And I think we can turn this around. I think this country can be the country it was meant to be, right? I truly believe that. A lot of people say, America's going straight to hell. Yeah, we may be on our way, but it don't mean that we got to get there. Because, see, you know what? I was talking about Noah's Ark last week, and God spared the world for an extra 100 years because Noah was a righteous man. Imagine if there's millions and hundreds of millions of us who are righteous and we got an upstanding relationship with God. What will he do for us? So that's where I want to go with it. And I'm going to leave it at that. And with that being said, I'm going to say, Sister Kimmy, if you would, because find what you love, embrace it, and chase it. That's your relentless pursuit. That Mr. Sedric and my partner, Jason. Have a wonderful weekend. We will see you again next week. God bless you. We love you. Stay safe.
Bless me through my hard times. Jail cells and penitentiaries. Bad marriages. Foul living. Brought me through all of it. And I thank you for being my Lord and Savior.
I walk the talk to preach the word of God with no shame. I seek to help the weak release this heat like hot flames. I'm heavy in the game, ordained to make it rain. Devoted with the motive, Holy Spirit in my veins. When I'm baptized to be the Holy Ghost is released. Destroy the enemy, that's to be a holy peace. Evangelize this people, gotta set some souls free. Me and my saints, we go deep, I guarantee you know me. Down in the dirty, all my saints stay thirsty. For the word of God, gotta get the church early. Worship with the sun, watch the Holy Ghost come. When my lyrics tear through the air, the devil better run. Attack with the tongue, boy, here it comes. God's words are national, proverbs and songs. Coming through your ears, a true holy writer. Doing God's work like the prophet they call it light.
Thank you for giving all your love. You were the only one there when things got rough. My Lord, my God, my Savior, your power reigns from up above. Thank you for giving all your love. You were the only one there when things got rough. My Lord, my God, my Savior, your power reigns from up above.
I got some letters and some cards from my sisters in Virginia. Robin and I used to have my back. I remember when I was locked up down in Florida fighting cases. The Lord lifted me up, kept me strong, gave me patience. Daily meditation in His Word was my fortune. God gave me power more than 500 horses. He told me first, what the son, get the job done. Preach to the people, make me number so you can hear his demand. Get saved, man. Judgment day's at hand. Or go to hell and be that fish in the frying pan. You know what I'm saying? We heard it all before. Go to church and see them hypocrites fall to the floor. This is my report. I tell it like it is. The church was set to free. My mama told me as a kid. Sin was condemned. Each and every person living in the world doing dirt like a serpent. You need to start searching your heart and your mind. Get right for God before you run out of time. That's the bottom line. God gave us free will. Make the right choice and let him show you what's real. I thank you for my brother's life. I thank you for the word. Saved by God's grace, much more than I deserve.
Thank you for giving all your love. You were the only one there when things got rough. My Lord, my God, my Savior. Your power reigns from up above. Thank you for giving all your love. You were the only one there when things got rough. My Lord, my God, my Savior. Your power reigns from up above. Thank you for giving all your love. You were the only one there when things got rough. My Lord, my God, my Savior. Your power reigns from up above. Thank you for giving all your love. You were the only one there when things got rough. My Lord, my God, my Savior. Your power reigns from up above.
I still love you. Thank you, Jesus. Apostle Thomas, you know what it is. It's about God. To I praise His name.